Yeah, I just haven't seen it. Okay, I'd like to call the September 13th, 2022 Pleasant Ridge City Commission meeting to order. May we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have roll call?
Commissioner Budnick?
Here.
Commissioner Lenko?
Here.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here. Were there any items this evening, public discussion, that are not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to governmental reports. And there are none. So we'll go on to the liaison reports. Commissioner Lenko.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So from a school perspective, exciting news. Homecoming's coming up. So there's going to be a parade on Friday, September 30th at Planavon and 9 Mile starting at 4 o'clock, followed by tailgate at the high school from 5 to 7, followed by the rest of the festivities. So that's kind of the big news current. And then larger conversation, there is an open seat on the school board with the election going on, so I'd encourage everybody out there to understand who the candidates are and cast your vote on election day. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenko.
Thank you.
On to Commissioner Perry.
Hey, thank you. The Planning Commission and DDA are going to meet on Monday, October 24th. I think they're going to have some interesting conversations on everything from the drive-through businesses, as well as, I think there are going to be some other interesting topics. So I hope you can join us right here at 7 o'clock on Monday, October 24th. Thanks.
Thank you. And on to Commissioner Schmier.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so Historic is back kind of in session. We didn't meet over the summer, so we are back. A couple important things. Historic Museum, Saturday the 17th, 10 until noon. It will be open, so come check it out. Check out your file. Big news is that we have scheduled a date for the Home and Garden Tour for 2023. So it will be, at this point, September 23rd. Unless anything changes, that is the date. So if anyone is interested in participating, fingers crossed that we will be doing actually a house tour this year. So get in touch if you're interested in being involved, because it is one of my favorite events, and I've been bummed. Or I was bummed this year.
That's in 23, right?
23, September 23rd, 2023. You can, don't forget to buy your decorative house ornaments. You can buy them City Hall. We will be, Election Day, we will be out there, and it's the Pleasant Ridge ornament for your Christmas tree or just for your house. And also the last thing is Then and Now. The book is coming along. I saw some sample designs, so that Then and Now book, hopefully, and Mayor, you might be able to speak to a more specific date, but we are getting close, and it's going to look awesome.
Yeah, it's the Then and Now committee has had to think about the cost of making a book, as everything has gotten more expensive. So has the cost of producing a book and getting it published. All of those things have weighed in. So I think we've gotten to a point now where we like the pricing associated with the book and the page content. I think we've got about 175 pages of really cool pictures and updates from the 80s version. So looking forward to seeing the final version soon.
And the final version will be beautiful. Like what they're laying out, it's really going to be a pretty book also, which is really exciting.
Yes.
And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Budnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Everybody sit back. Shawnee's got, we have quite a report. Get some popcorn. First, we have flu shots are available Thursday, September 29th and October 13th from 1 to 6 p.m. These shots are held at the Rec Center and you can register online for a time slot. Fall Fest and the Hayride, which is a community favorite, especially for those with little people. Big people allowed too. Sunday, that's 10-9 from 4 to 6 at Gainsborough. There'll be a food truck, a petting farm, pumpkins, sponsored by Brylar, cider and donuts, sponsored by Robert Campbell. So super fun event. If you have kids, bring them. If not, just come along and have some cider either way. Halloween movie in the park is Friday, October 7th at 7 p.m. This is a fun evening for the whole family, so don't forget to bring a lawn chair, blanket, and some snacks. The movie will be shown behind the community center, and the movie is Hocus Pocus, in line with the Halloween theme. And a little more Halloween stuff. We have a teen trip to Cedar Point for Halloween weekends. It's $90. Shawnee, what's R and NR?
Resident and non-resident.
Thank you. So $90, you get $10 off if you're a resident. $100 if you just want to join. That is Saturday, September 24th, and that's a long day. 7:30 a.m. till midnight.
Trooper.
Yeah.
Greg's going. Yep.
Greg's going. All right.
Excited.
And something new, adult trivia night. So the world famous Ham Bones Trivia is coming to the PR Rec Center on Thursday, October 6th from 7 to 9. For the best trivia you've ever played, it'll be teams from 1 to 6 players. So if you're a savant like Lenko or Brett over here, Mayor Scott, of course, Commissioner Schmier and Commissioner Perry as well.
I want euchre.
Amen. Teams from 1 to 6 players, so we can work together to answer questions that require more reasoning than they do recall. The questions are written by Hambones and cover every topic you can think of. So music, movies, current events, history, geography, business, culture, sports, and more. So PR resident John O'Keefe will be your host, so come out for some friendly competition and a great time. The cost is $10 a player.
What's the date again?
That is on October 6th. That's a Thursday from 7 to 9. And a couple more items. The PR Foundation has partnered with the city to purchase a new scoreboard and timing system for the 2023 swim team season, which is awesome. The foundation, it's a perfect time to mention that. The foundation, we're having the Not Auction, which is a week from Friday, correct? Which is our fall, what are they calling it exactly? Fall harvest. Thank you. So the fall harvest. The auctions, for those that haven't been, they're a lot of fun. You get to hang out with neighbors, have a few cocktails, and have a great time. So for those that are interested, there are still a few tickets available, I believe. And last, Rec had a great summer. So thank you to all of the PR families for registering for events, camps, and the swim team. They had a great summer, and hope everyone did too.
Even the dogs had a good time.
They did. Thank you, Shawnee and Greg. Thanks, you guys.
Awesome.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Budnick. All right, on to the consent agenda. Nothing big to highlight on this consent agenda. Just some items around funding for infrastructure planning and some permit work and some other things. Certainly check the packet if you'd like more information. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move the consent agenda be approved.
Have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? We have a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. And now we'll move on to the Cambridge lot split request. Jim?
Thank you. The city received a request from the property owner at 24 Cambridge for a lot split. 24 Cambridge is a combination of 3 underlying component parts, one of which being the former Livernois right-of-way, which was set aside from the plats, an outlot from the abutting subdivision, and then lot 23 from the Pleasant Ridge Land Company subdivision. So you can see this shows a location of 24 and all the other houses on the street. The little sliver that you see to the south next to 25 is actually part of one of those adjoining lots, and that is one of those outlots because it abutted the formerly set aside right away for Livernois. You can see here that these are the edges of the underlying plats in purple. Livernois was platted to continue northbound through Pleasant Ridge initially. The Pleasant Ridge Land Company plat and the one to the east along Cambridge and Oxford are some of the older plats in the city. The ones to the north came later and did not continue the right-of-way, and ultimately Livernois was stopped to the south at the city boundary. So then the right-of-way that was set aside when that happened was abandoned and basically sold for development. So this shows the current boundaries overlaid on the aerial. It gets a little complex, but the yellow lines are the former Livernois right-of-way. And then you can see the outlines of the 55-foot wide portion of 24 Cambridge that's in the former right-of-way, the 8.1-foot wide outlot C from the Pleasant Ridge Land Company subdivision, and then lot 23, which is a 61-foot wide platted lot. Those were combined to form 24 Cambridge. All of the lots to the west in the Pleasant Ridge Land Company subdivision are 61 feet wide. And then in the subdivision to the east, they're 65 and 60 feet wide when you get further down to the east. You will notice that the other lot next to this is 59.92 feet wide on both the north and the south side. That's because the other half of the 110-foot right-of-way was sold off for a lot. So there's another 55-foot lot and then a 4.92-foot outlot from the abutting subdivision to the east. So there's a lot of history that went into the creation of this area. This shows a survey of the property with the proposed 50-foot wide lot. That is the minimum lot width in the R1C district, which Cambridge and Oxford are located in. You can see the outlines of the existing house. So the setback is shown as 13.8 feet. From the proposed lot line. That would be the setback from the existing house at 24 Cambridge. One thing that's important to note is that our ordinance requires city commission approval if a platted lot is to be divided. So sometimes lot splits require city commission approval, sometimes they do not. If this proposal was to simply split off the underlying 61-foot lot, it would be administratively approved. There's really nothing to say. It meets standards and it would be approved. Because it's partitioning a platted lot into a smaller part, it requires city commission approval. The lot at 12 Cambridge, where the other new house is under construction, that lot was never combined. It was owned by a neighboring property owner, but the two parcels were never combined into one. Here, I don't know why, but these were all combined into one parcel. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. The other thing to note is that it is actually impossible to split off the underlying 61-foot wide lot here because you have to have a 5-foot side yard setback. So the 13.8-foot setback from the proposed property line to the house, you could only add 8 feet to the, what's my math here? 8.8 feet to the proposed parcel A, because that would be that would then maintain the minimum 5-yard side yard setback on the remaining parcel B where the house is.
5 foot.
5 foot on parcel B, correct. So the largest lot you could create here would be 58.8 feet. There we go. I already did the math for myself. So that would just show approximate boundaries of what that would end up looking like versus the proposed 50-foot lot. There are criteria, considerations for approval in the city's subdivision ordinance. In section 66-21 of the Code of Ordinances. Is the division in keeping with the character of the surrounding neighborhood? So I note that the underlying platted lots on Cambridge are 60 to 65 feet wide. Most parcels on Cambridge match the underlying platted lots. There are some 59.9 or 59, whatever they are, 59.5 foot lots right next to these, which also is a function of the former Livernois right-of-way. Does the division enhance the future development or existing uses of the affected lands in conformity with the zoning ordinance? And the answer is yes, this does comply with zoning ordinance requirements. Will the split have an adverse impact on the provision of municipal services? The split will not have an impact on the delivery of municipal services. The addition of one house doesn't impact the city's ability to provide water, sewer, police, fire, or any other services. Is it in the public interest? It would result in a smaller lot than currently exists on the street, but the resulting density is still would be still slightly less than the average for the street. You basically would have 2 houses on 124 feet. So that's an average of 62 feet. One house for every 62 feet. And we know that all the other houses on the street are 61 or 65 feet wide. So from a density perspective, it's the average houses per feet for the street. From a lot width perspective, it would be the smallest lot on the street, but it does meet zoning ordinance requirements. So that is the basics of the request. The City Commission is being asked to approve or deny the request to split 24 Cambridge. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Would the homeowners like to?
Yeah, if I could. So Nate Minesberg, the homeowner at 24 Cambridge. I just wanted to give a little bit more color for why we're requesting the 50-foot lot split. So by doing that, we actually preserve the green space from any future development that may occur between the lots. Specifically 3 trees, very prominent trees that are in the area, and then they would be protected for any future development that may occur. My fiance and I, it's very important to us because it's part of the character that we had with the house when we bought it. We feel that is consistent with the character and the green space that you find on that street as well. So just wanted to share that additional insight to our decision, or request, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion first?
I have some comment as a neighbor, if I may.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we, yes, go, please.
Eric Scheibel at 28. We're just on the west side of this lot. And a couple of things I think is important that, Jim pointed out. It would be the smallest lot on the street. It also would be the smallest lot between Woodward and Ridge all the way north. There is no other 50-foot lot between that space. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. The preamble to the Pleasant Ridge City zoning ordinance says, in part, and I'm quoting, that it's there for the general welfare of the inhabitants of the city of Pleasant Ridge, protecting and conserving the character and social and economic stability of the residential, commercial, industrial, and other use areas by securing the most appropriate use of the land, preventing overcrowding of the land and undue congestion of population, providing adequate light, air, and reasonable access, and facilitating adequate economic provisions of transportation, water, sewers, and schools. It's just not going to do that, you guys. You're putting a postage, if you approve it, you're putting a postage stamp lot in a city that doesn't have postage stamps lots. And we know what's going to happen next. We're not a Bigfoot city either. Jim made the point, and I'm going to take him at his word. If this was a split of the lot right down the middle, there wouldn't be an issue. Why isn't the request for splitting it down the middle? Because that impacts the existing Cardelli house and now the new owner's house. There's not enough room. And somebody may say there is, but I'm going to suggest people need to sharpen their pencils because it doesn't appear either from the density or the setbacks that there's enough room, and that's the reason we're all here tonight. It's not because we want a 50-foot lot, it's because it doesn't work as a split. We got big issues with it. In this neighborhood, we have other neighbors here. Several neighbors can't be here tonight. We haven't even met these folks. Stakes were put in the ground before they moved in. Wish we started off on a better foot, but we didn't. And here we are, and we're requesting you guys to deny the request, just for those reasons.
If I may ask, is it that you don't want any split or that you don't want this split?
We don't want the 50 split. That's what's before you guys tonight, Mayor. And we can talk about another split, but like I said, I'll take Jim at his word. If it was a split down the middle and it would have been done administratively, we wouldn't have gotten notice of it, presumably. So the 50 is our major concern tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Because it would be the only one on this side of town.
Gotcha, thank you.
May I ask a question? And this might be a little, I'm just curious because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And here's really my question. If, let's say it was a 61, an even split. So it was just administratively, we were not having this conversation. I don't have a ton of faith in developers in general. And I don't know who would be buying the property, but my thought is that anyone who's going to build on that 61-foot lot or the 50-foot is going to kind of max out the space. this proposal at least leaves some green space between the properties with the preservation of the trees. So is that better than than an even split that might have maxed out that other lot with a larger house? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, that's
I
where
understand.
I've been.
I'm with you, and I don't know the answer to that question because the only thing on the agenda tonight is a split to 50.
Right.
I don't know what it's going to look like if you split it. In my personal opinion, they can split it down the middle because they're going to need a variance on the existing house. So that's just me talking. I could be wrong. Like I said, sharpen our pencils and let's figure out how that works. It seems to me that's the easier way to do it, Commissioner, and that's not the request tonight. So, no, I don't want a postage stamps, and I don't want either a Bigfoot or somebody building a carriage house next door. And that's me talking personally. Whatever works for the neighborhood is great, but this part of Cambridge is unique with the Potts and the Pontuses and the Cardelli house all having that open space. They're all lots and a half, and the math just doesn't work on this one. And it's just a numbers game. A 50-foot lot on this side just doesn't work, especially in that space. It'd be the only one. So who knows what goes on there? That's the next discussion that we're not even having yet, because I don't have faith in the developers either. So we can put up a Bigfoot and look like Birmingham, or we can continue to be Pleasant Ridge. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure, please.
Thanks. Eric Pott, 29 Cambridge, across the street from the vacant lot that's under evaluation. So I don't want to, Eric kind of really summarized it really well. I just wanted to reiterate that we have a lot and a half in our home. The Ponteses next door have a lot and a half. There is another full vacant lot in between 23 and 19 Cambridge. So it's a beautiful street. It's got a lot of huge trees, which I can respect the desire to preserve those. And that open space really, I think, lends itself to those big trees and to a neighborhood that I think represents space. So respectfully, I understand that converting Lot 23 is in the interests of the current owners. I would say that a 50-foot lot does run counter to the look and feel of our particular segment of Cambridge, and also to the entire neighborhood sector, as Eric alluded to. I think we're R1C, so there's really nobody in the sector that has this size lot. I think it does impose bad development scenarios, either the Bigfoot effect, which I know that Pleasant Ridge doesn't stand for, or if a more modest home was put in and it was too small, that would look out of place with the neighborhood. So I think both options threaten the value of existing homes. A lot of us in the neighborhood, I think everybody in Pleasant Ridge really works hard in their home. I'm proud of Pleasant Ridge. I'm proud of the fact that we are a nationally registered historical district and area, and that we take it very seriously. We award beautification awards, and I think that we have very high standards. So I'm just asking that we hold all of the properties, all of the lots to those same standards, which seem to be around 60 feet, at least on our street, and that we vote no to the 50-foot split and consider, as Eric mentioned, evaluating the other option to see what that looks like and take it from there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else on? Sure, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Don Scheibel, similar to someone else you've heard from. My wife and I live at 46 Kensington, next to the new Halloween house. The one thing that I would mention, I'm a licensed architect and have been a planning consultant most of my career, but I disagree with the presenter in that the 61-foot lot would leave less than 5 feet between the home and the the existing parcel size. They could go before the boarding zone of appeals and get a variance for 3 feet. In other words, it would not, if it's at 61 feet, it wouldn't be in compliance, as was stated, because it would be less than the 5. Go to the zoning board of appeals and get a variance of 2 or 3 feet. Seems easy, and then it remains at 61, which I think you suggested was the minimum majority of the other lots. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? right, well, I'm curious to hear what the motion will be. Would you like to speak before a motion?
if that's okay. Yeah, if that's okay. And first, welcome to the neighborhood. You bought a beautiful home, and congrats. This is an amazing community, and I think you'll find it just as awesome as our rec commission report.
At least.
Minimally, yeah. So, no, this to me was something that I ruminated on quite a bit for a lot of the reasons that the residents have duly brought up. No, and it's a tough one. This is something that I think we're all struggling with a little bit because on one hand, we appreciate someone investing in the city, and I do, and starting, their journey here in Pleasant Ridge. On the other hand, there is a character and the uniqueness of this street and the continuity of all the lots on this particular block. And to me, also something that I'm considering is the fact that when you're looking at a variance, typically it has to be, an undue hardship. And so that's something I'm looking at. Is there an undue hardship? And in this case, it's debatable because it's self-imposed. So, I'm looking at this very closely, and I just wanted to say that it's tough. Welcome, and we'll see what happens. So, thank you, Mayor.
Oh, no problem.
If I could, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I have spent a lot of time, and as I mentioned, a lot of where I'm kind of stuck is certainly maintaining the size of the lots, the consistency is ideal. The reason, in my mind, that I am considering the 50 is because of the preservation of the trees and the green space, which the smaller lot does preserve. And it's hard. But just, I mean, that's where I have been going back and forth. Because having houses, big houses close together without green space isn't great either. I mean, it also diminishes the feel of the street. So that is where my head is. It's been hard. I've spent a really long, time. I know a lot of us have just really thinking about it and talking about it and trying to understand the best move for me forward on this.
I'll offer some thoughts. I took a bike ride along Cambridge today just to refresh my memory of the homes that are on Cambridge and how they relate to each other and the diversity of housing stock along Cambridge. And there's a lot of different kinds of homes there. I can imagine a new home fitting on Cambridge. In my mind, there are two questions. Should there be a lot split? And if there is a lot split, what shape should it take? And could the home fit in with the other homes, meeting our design guidelines, our ordinances, et cetera? And so west of 24, most of the homes are actually separated by their driveway and an easement. They're actually pretty close together. They're less close together as you go further east on Cambridge. So I can imagine a home fitting on that lot and still preserving the space, because the home at 28 has the driveway next to the lot, and the home at 24 would have the green space. So there's some openness there between the house and the two homes between it, or to the side of it, which seemed reasonable to me. I do agree with Ms. Schmier that whatever size we make the lot, the developer is probably going to try to fill it, because those are the kinds of homes that are being built now. They're just bigger homes, or maybe they have a nice entrance feature, but they still fill the lot. And sometimes the garage is to the side and to the front, or however it fits, but they're going to fill the lot. So that's kind of the trade-off of splitting, or allowing a split, is that the house will fill the lot. So that's the thing that's going into my vote. The housing stock is diverse on Cambridge. I think a house could fit. There'd be some work required to make sure that it was fitting for the street, although there's already diversity of housing on the street, so I'm sure it could be made to fit. So So I think we still need at least a motion so that we may move forward or not.
You know, it's interesting because I've had lots of conversations with everyone over the past few days, and especially with a lot of residents on Cambridge, and just knowing the consistency of those lot sizes and the consistency of the homes. You know, one of my bigger it's like I've gone both ways, because I thought Katie's her thought about the smaller lot size, leaving more sort of air between homes and stuff like that, definitely makes some sense. But then, you also see it's like the whole mistrust of developers in this period of time is something that it's a weird factor that I think just what we've experienced, I factor into this stuff as well. It's almost like a slightly different solution seems better. It's like there are a lot of beautiful homes, and you shared an email that of beautiful homes that are on 50-foot lots, but it's hard with the way things are being developed today. Like what is somebody going to put on there? Are they going to be as thoughtful as what those homes were built like in the 20s and 30s? So it's this is one of those that you're just it's very difficult, because it's like that street is so beautiful and you hate to break that up.
So in one of, I don't think it was public documents, but one of the emails from Jim, he said, this is kind of a special consideration, right? Like this isn't always, and it's not always the case at all cities, right? Like that something like this comes up. So I guess I would just ask myself, like, why, right? Like, because I think there's meant to be like a pause in order to absorb the input from the surrounding residents, and something as subjective as character is really hard to pin. But I think Jim's first point about the averages, I think, is the right point. And to the public commentary as well, like this corner of the city doesn't have 50-foot lots. One of those houses was what I grew up in on 43 Oakdale. And I mean, on that side of Ridge Road, yeah, there are smaller lots, but the first block off of Woodward tends to be the larger. So that's just where my head's at, is just straight numbers on averages, and also out of simplicity too, for what it's worth.
I do have a question, if I may, which is, as the current house is now, it cannot be this even plat split. We cannot split off the plat. So is the question at this moment, do we split, or, I mean, is there an ability to go back and maybe rework this and rework the conversation to a 58 or something else? Because, I would hate to say just a blatant yes or no without the ability to maybe engage in a different.
Or the suggestion from Mr. Scheibel, Jim, is that reasonable? The zoning ordinance variance?
Well, Chris hit the point. What's the practical difficulty? It's difficult to say there's a unique circumstance that justifies that. It also, if our concern is crowding, that would create the ability to have the closest two houses to each other on the entire street, probably we have some on the east side, but you could end up with houses that were 7.8 feet apart. And that's a condition that doesn't exist anywhere in Cambridge, where you've got houses that are that close to each other, because we have a 5-yard minimum side yard setback right now. So right now, the closest you could possibly have houses is 10 feet. And in fact, most of the houses on Cambridge are separated by 14 feet or more. So I don't know that the variance solves the concern about crowding and light and air. It actually could make that worse. So it's, you would have a 61-foot wide lot, but that would open the door to having a 48-foot wide house that was separated by 7.8 feet from the existing 24 Cambridge house. Is that a better outcome than having a little bit smaller house on the new lot and maintaining that same setback requirement that we have for all the other houses on the street? I'm not sure.
Is anyone compelled to make a motion?
The only other thing I would add to that too is that we have traditionally a very strict policy with granting variances. Sometimes some communities have a character, or kind of culture where variances are granted fairly easily based on however the zoning board of appeals feels. Here, the city commission is the zoning board of appeals, and we've maintained a very hard line on variances. We haven't granted one since maybe we did once, I don't remember, but we have turned down many, many variance requests because it's difficult to obtain a variance. So, we do have that culture as well. So that plays into, the ease of which we could recommend and grant a variance.
Yes, please.
Just piggybacking on what Jim said, one of the criteria that you're supposed to consider when granting or denying a variance is whether the problem was self-created. And if somebody is dividing the land, and there's kind of case law dead on point that says, if you divide the land, you're not entitled to a variance if the reason for the variance is because you divided the land. So it would be difficult to, I think, for you acting as the zoning board of appeals to grant it.
To justify the variance, yeah.
So just asking a question. Am
Please.
I okay to sit and ask the?
Actually,
or
please
prefer
stand up.
I stand up. Okay. So on the street, I believe the average is the 60 to 65. I believe there's 2 residences that have lot size below 60. I believe it's approximately 58 feet. So one of the questions I would have, we talked about a variance going from 61 to 58 that would then meet the 5-foot setback requirement. Precedents existing on the street, which in my opinion would maintain the character if it meets a precedence of an already established house on the street. Would that then be considered acceptable, or is that?
I think it would still come back here because it's.
Well, if you are amenable, could the city commission approve this subject to it being? Could the city commission allow staff to administratively approve a 58-foot lot, or would it have to come back here with the redrawing?
Commission could approve it with that stipulation that a proper survey be provided, and if the 58-foot lot is acceptable, then you could take the action Jim suggests.
Are you amiable to 58, understanding that you'd lose the tree? You may lose the trees, we don't know, but the reason that you're at 50 is because of the trees?
Yeah, exactly, which is really important to us, and I mean, I've already made the comments associated to that, but as part of, if it is rejected at the 50, then I would ask if there would be consideration of a contingency, redesign of the survey, proof of meeting another lot on the street at that existing size, and if that would be amicable.
One thing we don't know is the location of the trees.
Sure.
We know they're there.
Yeah.
Just don't know exactly where.
Yeah.
And I know time is probably an issue. But would you be willing to add the trees to the survey so that could be taken into consideration where an equitable lot line might be that could possibly maximize the size of the resulting lot, but also save the trees? Because a 55-foot lot that saves trees might be a better outcome than a 58-foot lot that doesn't save the trees for the street, for everything. And I don't know.
Yeah, certainly.
That's the one thing we don't know.
We will do whatever we can to support. We're making the request, so we'll be amicable to whatever you will consider, including identifying the trees on the survey. Absolutely.
That makes sense to me.
So that would require this to be postponed until
So there's no
Nate
motion
can-
on the table, so we can move to the next item.
Right. Well, you could move to postpone until the applicant brings back a revised survey that shows the locations of the trees and a revised property line.
Okay.
I move we postpone until the resident comes back with the revised survey with the trees.
A second.
Any other comment before we vote? I think we're ready for a vote.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. So there'll be a little bit more time, but I think it's good time.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming. Okay. I'll almost forgot where we were.
Main Street.
Main Street, transfer to the DOT.
Yes. So MDOT approached the city. It was their operations engineer from the Oakland County TSC. After a conversation with the commissioner, I called him and said, what prompted this? And he said he was just looking at jurisdiction maps. And so he noticed that Main Street, you'll see the area in red. Main Street between Woodward and 696 is a City of Pleasant Ridge street. Of course, Woodward and 696 are both MDOT right-of-ways. And MDOT has traditionally maintained Main Street. So they have been maintaining a Pleasant Ridge local street for us, which has been great. But from our standpoint, we have basically, even though it's our local street, anything we do along Main Street, we've permitted through MDOT as if it was an MDOT road because it's got the intersections with Woodward and 696. So anything we do on Main Street touches and goes into those rights of way. So it basically requires a permit. So it's been a de facto MDOT street, although we have local control over it right now. So MDOT approached us about formalizing, making that a MDOT right of way. Considerations, of course, loss of control is probably the biggest one. On the other hand, getting free maintenance on a local street has been great. If MDOT requests to formalize that and we say no, I don't know that free maintenance will continue on Main Street. So there are future costs involved with owning that road. I asked the city engineer to tell me what he would estimate reconstructing it would cost in today's dollars, and it was about $325,000 to reconstruct Main Street in its present form. We do have a design. We are doing the road diet along that, so that will be done. Hopefully constructed next year. So that project will be complete. And the $325,000 reconstruction cost is based on where those new curb lines will be based on that. And then again, the loss of control. So we're placing this request before you to formalize that. There's a similar request from the city of Royal Oak. They own the orange box. So the city boundary is right there in the middle of 696. Royal Oak technically has jurisdiction over Main Street from the middle of 696 up to, all the way up. The request would be for Royal Oak to turn over just the portion of Main Street that's sort of in the 696 right-of-way. So that portion of our Main Street that's in the 696 right-of-way, that's sort of dual jurisdiction. So MDOT's always going to override us. So they've always done what they're going to do within the bounds of the 696 right-of-way. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, hear your thoughts, concerns. And Royal Oak will be considering vacating or turning this over to MDOT at their September 26th meeting. So they've got this coming up soon, too.
Thank you. May we have a motion or discussion? Usually,
just as far as the why seems kind of weak to me. It seems like somebody's just poking around, and the why now doesn't. I don't understand the why now. Like, so if we're going to give this to them, like for basically nothing in exchange, couldn't we give this to them in October or in January potentially? Maybe we can see what Royal Oak does. I guess I don't see the urgency. So, like, there's no money changing hands. It's just property and liability. And touching on previous conversations, previous agenda items, like, I mean, we are in a really interesting corner of southeastern Michigan and our interstate system and all these roads. Like, Livernois, that's a story. 696, that's a story. Like, I don't know, just handing over a piece of our control for nothing seems questionable. So I'd like to investigate it more, and I'd also like to see what Royal Oak does.
okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, please. I'm sorry. Normally we would take a motion and then talk, but
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor. Jim, real quick, irresponsible speculation, any insight to Royal Oak's decision or anything that's going on with when they see it in September?
No.
Okay.
No. Their city engineer had forgotten about the request until I called to ask what was going on. He says, I should move that forward.
All right.
And this is just their piece that's in the 696 right of way, so
Right,
I
right.
can't see them not doing it. They don't want to have to fix a bridge.
And there's, yeah, no property adjacent to it.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, please.
Do you want me to make a motion and then ask questions?
Go for it.
Okay. Your Honor, I move that the memorandum of understanding between the City of Pleasant Ridge and the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, which transfers jurisdiction over Main Street from Woodward to the North City boundary, be approved, and that the city manager be authorized to sign the memorandum of understanding on the city's behalf.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All
Mayor,
right.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, please.
Thank you. All right, so, so Jim, would we maintain control of the triangle
Yeah, we own that.
and the property?
It's not
Okay.
in the right of way, that's city property.
Okay, great. With the, you and I, or I think you had talked about in maybe our memo that, because we got information on this back in July, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did, you were saying there was some sewer work that was done under this and everything? Now, did we have the financial responsibility for that?
Right, so I mean, that's an example of how MDOT has maintained this as their own right of way. There was a sewer issue that existed in the road, this was last summer, summer of 2021.
Okay.
And they dug it up, repaired the sewer, and when you're going northbound on Main Street through that stretch, it's in the far left lane, you'll notice there's a section of concrete in the otherwise asphalt road.
Okay,
That's the repair they did where they dug up the sewer.
Okay.
So, you know, that's the financial benefit that we've already gained from this is not having to maintain anything in there.
sure. Now, with, we've had control and whatever over it, so what types of things has that given us? Is there anything you think that, I mean, because I know we've asked for signage like don't block don't block Kensington's entrance, which doesn't really work, but,
Right.
I mean, is there anything?
No, because anything we've wanted to do with it has started in the Woodward right-of-way and or ended
Okay.
in the 696 right-of-way.
Okay,
So the types of things, we tested the road diet there
Right.
back in 2015. That started along Woodward and continued into the 696 right-of-way. So we permitted that through MDOT because it started in their right-of-way.
okay,
If you take this out kind of like to its logical conclusion, what MDOT's concern is that, we would do something like close Main Street and kind of throw this whole intersection into chaos. That's their reason why they would like to take jurisdiction over it.
right. I remember at one point someone trying to discuss that, let's close it and make it a park, kind of thing, because it would be so enjoyable right there at, 96.
Right, so, that's what MDOT is, that's what they don't want to see happen, and that's, why they want to formalize this.
Okay. The, as we're talking about the Woodward Streetscape or the Streetscape thing, does it go up to that part on Main Street?
Yes, it goes up Woodward, and then it goes up Main Street to 696.
Okay, and would that be impacted at all by any of this?
No, that's already been, the design has been approved.
Okay,
And since we rejected the first bid and removed the green stormwater
Yeah.
infiltration, we have to get that reapproved, but the geometry and the layout of the cycle track and the road diet is going to be the same.
okay,
So that's well underway and will happen along this segment,
okay,
regardless of what we decide here today, yes or no.
okay. Yeah, are there any, I was trying to think of any other, like, control. Like, what has control gotten us, I guess is the question.
We haven't sought to do anything really that,
Okay,
wasn't status quo for the design and function of the street.
Or wouldn't require MDOT approval anyway because of
Okay.
either end point.
Right.
Maybe one example, if I may. I think like in 1995, when the Dream Cruise first started, we used to, that might have been before you lived here, but we used to do like movies in the park. Or not in the park, but in the street, right? So would that be something that we would have no control over?
We could
Just as an example.
We could request and permit that through MDOT.
Okay, right, but we wouldn't need the request through MDOT today, or in 1995, hypothetically.
Still, you would be closing an intersection because we could do that, but we would have to close that intersection at Woodward. So when you're closing, that intersection at Woodward, you really should permit that through MDOT, regardless of, whether we have local jurisdiction or not. Now, we could go wildcat that and, do it somewhere north of the intersection. But, usually when you do that, you have advance warning for cars and everything else. So,
Absolutely.
That's the kind of thing that.
So maybe a better question. So a minute ago, you touched on the problem statement, at least in my mind, is that MDOT's afraid we may close Main Street. I don't know that's ever been a discussion point, a serious discussion point. And also, could we just
But it
do
was.
a memo of understanding that we will not close Main Street instead of relinquishing our control of this property to them? Like, if that's their concern, let's address the specific concern.
Sure. I just, the benefit of giving them jurisdiction is that they can never make us pay to do anything to maintain that street.
It's such a yeah, exactly. But they're not going to stop, too. Or if they do, I don't know.
If I could make a comment, which is, I think we got this back in July, and I think actually I've gone to Jim a couple times, and probably my first question, and I don't know if I was one of many, but the question being, why now? What do they want? And my initial concern, too, was the loss of control. But as we talked about it more, I think that the equation is the cost of it versus what benefit has it given us. That's what we're weighing, the future costs versus the benefits. And the future costs, you say that you don't think MDOT will stop paying for the repairs of the street, but I don't know that to be true.
Not repairs. That's not what he's talking. He's talking about plowing. It's an important intersection during.
Oh, sorry, go on.
That was one example. So this is what I'm talking about.
But the 325 in today's dollars, from my understanding, is the future repaving and repaving of the street when
Over
it
a life
needs to
of
be
25
redone.
years, which would be 30,000 a year or less.
Is it? But is the 325 the repaving?
It's more than just that. So the request came from the fact that I think MDOT operations in Oakland TSC had never really looked at the fact that they don't own this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the 325, it's the sewer repair. It's the, surprise $60,000 sewer repair, and, we have water mains to do. So that's the only reason I find this compelling.
It feels like a false choice in that we're being pushed into this.
No, I think as I look at it, we could say why now. I would say why not now, because at the end of the day, we don't want to pay for the maintenance of that road. We haven't had to. It seems as though we've had much to do, and as I think into the future, that intersection will become a conversation. I know, because we're going to talk about 696 Woodward Ditch, all of that when that gets redone in some fashion. But the less of that is our cost, the better. Whatever happens there, the better.
But if we give it, I'm sorry to interrupt.
And so I guess that's what's going into my thinking is, I can't imagine Pleasant Ridge wanting to change the way that the road looks any differently than what we'll decide for 696 Woodward Interchange, and I'd rather not pay for any of it. So I'd just like to get rid of the cost. And if they've seemed to have been amiable so far and helping us with the streetscape and getting the permitting done when we need it. MDOT is not always easiest to deal with, but it doesn't seem, and you can correct me if that's been an issue on this stretch of road.
No, I found them reasonable to work with. They're bureaucratic, and things take forever.
Right.
But that's just what it is. In terms of, Oakland TSC and our projects and our test projects and our permits and our road diets and our TAP grants and our $1.2 million TAP grants, they've been supportive and good to work with. So that can change. People can change. Times can change. But
sure,
our history has been that they're reasonable.
Mayor?
Yes, please.
And, that was it exactly. Like, I was thinking back to the whole, what was the thing that we, met at the zoo, and it was a lot of discussion of the complete streets and all the different things. And there was a lot of discussion about the reconfiguration of Woodward and 696, 10 Mile, all that. And they were they were in on all of those discussions that were much larger about reconfiguring and trying to solve And they've solved, I mean, they reduced some lanes and things like that came out of that study to help calm traffic as well. Not everyone loves that, I understand, but it puts people in some, it organizes chaos just a little bit.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
So if I can synthesize, so it's a critical piece of property that MDOT wants. We're prepared to give it away for nothing. You don't think they're, like, if we're going to give it to them for nothing today, don't you think they'd want it for nothing?
We're not giving it away for nothing. We're giving it away to avoid
To
the
transfer
cost of
liability.
future
Okay,
maintenance.
so it's not really revenue. Like on a balance sheet, you're transferring liability off. Like that is a positive, but it doesn't count the
It's a big
same way.
positive.
Okay, we're exchanging property to get rid of a liability. Wouldn't they do this deal in 1 year?
Why wait?
Because I don't know. It's something that we own now, and we wouldn't own it later. Like,
Yeah, that's okay. I'm a free cycle user, so I'm good with getting rid of things that I may not want the maintenance of later. But
Come to my house. Help me out.
so on this one, it's literally I don't think that the road will the way that we use the road, the way that it's the way that we benefit from the road will change whether we give it away or not. I do see that the cost of maintenance of the road, just knowing how costs are building now on everything, it seems like a reasonable thing to do just to avoid that, as you say, the liability associated with the roadway, knowing that it's not likely, that MDOT is not likely to change its function until we have the bigger discussion around the function in that corner.
May I ask, Commissioner Lenka, I hear what you're saying. What are your concerns in terms of giving it, however we're...
leverage. We're giving up all of our leverage for nothing. Like, for not nothing, but
Our leverage
I'm going to
for
say
what?
for nothing.
Our leverage for what?
For owning, like having the prop, like if, so in the future, like, so I don't know, I was on the DDA for like better part of the last decade, and we talked a lot about maybe capping the freeway. There's all sorts of, like, the ditch is not crumbling, but like this is a piece of infrastructure that will need to be replaced and redone in the next, let's say 10, 15 years, right? Same with the freeway. Say, like, having a piece of ownership in that and have, like, we would actually have a bigger piece of seat, like a more significant seat at the table potentially.
The intersections are already MDOT, so to cap it, I'm assuming is not. Oh, I guess we could actually, Shauna.
Why would they? If they didn't want it, they wouldn't ask for it.
Well, I understand them
It's
wanting
like negotiation
control.
101. Like,
Again, I'm just wondering what we would ultimately be losing besides the property. I understand that, but what is the real concern here that they could do that is going to disadvantage Pleasant Ridge
I said all I can.
compared to the cost that we would be saving?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Please.
It would
Please.
be helpful to understand.
Sorry.
Actually, I'd like to just still talk about the 24 Cambridge issue. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
love it.
Thank you. So I'm trying to understand the offset of costs. A cost cut is, can always, be, warranted and desired. And, but are we, Commissioner Lenko, are you saying that, is your concern that we are relinquishing control? So if we wanted to have a vote to develop that for pedestrians, and I am not up to snuff on, I've heard about those plans, I've read a little bit, I don't know if they're a reality or if they're not a reality, but if that is important to the community, and the community would like to have a vote in the development of a pedestrian walkway, a catwalk, whatever we call it, then would we be relinquishing our power to have a vote in that development?
We'd be adding a middleman who would have to yes or no it. Right?
So we'd have to go to the middleman and say, hey, can we do
Correct.
this? And then they'd have to represent our interests.
So similar to what we're doing on Woodward Heights, as far as or we've done a couple of these experiments with the punch outs, right? Like
Chicanes.
If it's our
It's a better
road,
word.
we're able to, play these experiments out.
I think to Jim's point is the intersection drives much of the conversation. So we have an intersection to the service drive, we have an intersection to Woodward, we have an intersection, I suppose, it runs all the way up to 696. Ultimately, MDOT would need us to permit or to request, I'll say request permission to perform any of those activities. So they're already holding a vote on any of those conversations. The things that we could do, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, would be in the middle of those two intersections without a permit, but I don't know what we would do. But
Right.
where we do that, and it wouldn't result in a change to the intersections.
Right.
And
Particularly with the Kensington intersection being in the middle.
right. So then the question becomes: we could discuss what we might want to do there, but the reality is that most of anything that we'd want to do would involve MDOT anyway.
It's a regional action. It's not a,
Yeah, and
But would we not have more leverage, though, because it's our property?
we would. I think we still have the ability to make, as we have along Woodward, we have the ability to make recommendations to MDOT for changes that we'd want, submit proposals, ask for grants, all the things that we do today along Woodward. It'd be
Got it.
just like dealing with Woodward.
Okay, I'm just asking the question. I certainly don't represent the
Yeah.
community, but I have heard a lot about trying to develop that area to make it more, Royal Oak more accessible and vice versa.
yes.
So I just was wondering if we were relinquishing any sort
I
of
do want to
political
clarify
capital.
just quickly that we already have the approval on the bike paths and the walking. So that area has already been approved to be redeveloped, to make it more walkable, to make it prettier, to make it, so that has already been approved and is in the works.
Right.
So that is already moving forward, regardless of what we decide to do here.
Well, you're talking about the diet or some sort of cross? I mean, like, what if MDOT built us a bike bridge across the freeway?
I'm talking about the bike paths and what are we? Sorry, what are we?
Yeah, the
calling
road
it?
diet.
The streetscape. No, the streetscape, not the road diet. The streetscape that we're already doing along that area anyway. As it stands now that we're already doing.
What if we made it contingent on them improving that space to make it, like, that's a pretty hairy crossing right now.
They already have. I mean, they've already done improvements. They narrowed the crossing. They did the bump out. They reduced the nose on the other side.
They
So
added lighting.
they added lighting. It used to be crossing 4 lanes of traffic on the service drive. Now it's 2. So they have made moves. The green space at the top of the triangle where all the trees have been planted, that was formerly a lane. And I know that some
Right.
people who were turning into the Kensington Alley preferred that to be a lane.
Right.
But from a pedestrian crossing standpoint, it was an improvement there. So the question is, what more do we want? And they're not going to do it, but what more do we want?
Well, and I think, with all of that work that we were doing like 8 years ago and whatever, you see the regional effort in that and the regional interest. So it's not that, it isn't just saying, oh, well, Pleasant Ridge is going to hold out. And so, we have to do something until it is a regional effort where people work together. It's not a stalemate type of a situation from everything when we worked on this stuff together before.
I understand the leverage discussion. I understand the leverage concern. But if you're using that, then there has to be the presumption that you're going to use that leverage. And the only real leverage we have is to say, okay, we're closing Main Street. And do we think we'd be going to that step? Because there's really nothing else we can do along there that's going to
And we've already made the investment
Make
in the
MDOT care.
streetscape and the things that we really want.
right.
And it really messed up.
And have as much of an impact on us as it would everybody else closing Main Street,
Right.
because the cars don't disappear, they just make different turns.
Yes.
What's the harm in waiting until we see what Royal Oak does? Because, like, I'm all for regionalism and partnering, but it doesn't sound like they need to do anything with this space next week or next month. Right? They're just trying to tidy up some spreadsheet, and it looks like that should be theirs, and it isn't. So that's raised an eyebrow.
Yeah, as the owner of 100-year-old infrastructure, as the maintainer of 100-year-old infrastructure,
The caretaker.
I don't mind having this off of our books as quickly as possible, because MDOT maintained it because I think they thought they owned it.
Yeah.
And now that they know they don't, the next sewer break, who knows?
Sinkholes.
Sinkhole, yeah, I don't know.
It's my biggest fear, sinkholes.
It may be great for 10 years or next month. a water main could burst there, or, the sewer could pop another hole. I don't know. No, I don't have a crystal ball, so it's hard to say.
Respect that. Yep.
All right, well, we have a motion on the table. Would we like to take a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Nope.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. Thank you, the motion carries. Okay. Community pool filter replacement proposal.
Yes.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks.
Again, as the maintainer of old infrastructure, our pool is approaching 20 years old, which, kind of amazing. But that also means that all of the first generation equipment and parts and components of the pool are nearing or past really end of life. The most notable of these is the filter and the pump system. And Shawnee and Greg are here, and they can clarify anything that I misrepresent. But Oak Park had a situation this summer where their filter went out, and they lost their pool for the whole summer. Because this is the one part of the pool that you can't replace quickly or easily. It's months of downtime. Wow. So Shawnee and Greg have been working and looking into options for replacing our filter over the winter, so that we have a brand new one in place for next spring, and we eliminate the possibility that we're down without a pool for a summer. Currently, we have a sand filter. Those have sand media. The water's filtered through the sand. The sand requires replacement every 3 to 5 years. That was a 20-year-old system. Shawnee and Greg got quotes from 2 companies that are really the only companies in the region that do. Normally, we get 3 quotes at least, but there's only 2 that do commercial and community pools of this size. Aquatic Source and Barrozzini, and I apologize if I mispronounce that, but there's 3 types of systems we could do. There's a regenerative chlorine system where you put salt tablets in and it creates chlorine, so you don't have to actually buy chemicals and put chemicals in. That was a $209,865 quote. Ultimately, that one didn't pencil out. That's great if you have an indoor pool that you're running year-round. The cost of avoided chlorine purchases, makes up for that increased purchase price. But running an outdoor pool for 3.5, 4 months a year, the payback doesn't get there for the salt tablets versus the chlorine. Because the next option is a glass filtration system for $135,485. That uses glass media instead of sand. The glass media doesn't have to be changed, and it filters, I think, 5 times more efficiently than the sand. So you end up with better water quality and clarity. Mm-hmm. So there will be a benefit. The pool will be clearer and more filtered. And then the sand filtration system, so just replacing like with a newer version of what we already have, that was $121,084. So, and those include also the new chemical feed system that goes along with the filter and the pump. Given the fact that sand media needs to be replaced every 3 to 5 years at a cost of $5,000 to $10,000 over the life cycle of the filter, the glass filtration system likely ends up being cheaper on a life cycle cost basis. So for that reason, staff is recommending that the City Commission approve the bid from Barrozzini Aquatics in the amount of $135,485 for the installation of the glass media filtration system and associated improvements. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. I guess the one thing I should say is that for the past few years, we've known that these things were coming. We've been building a fund balance in Fund 251, the Pool and Fitness Facility Operating Fund. When I got here, the general fund was supplementing that fund. So we had to take money from the general fund to supplement the pool operations fund. Mm-hmm. But we've been working hard to build up a fund balance in that Fund 251 to end the general fund subsidies and to build this fund balance. So we started this fiscal year with $200,000 in that fund. So this won't require, this is planned for. We didn't have it budgeted for because we didn't have the quotes back yet. Mm-hmm. But we'll do a budget amendment and so we can handle this. And you may be wondering what's next.
Yeah.
What is next?
What is next? Pool is a hole in the ground you throw money into. So what's next is probably the heater. And that's about a $45,000 cost. That's probably our next biggest ticket item. Is that fair? So, that just gives you a sense of scale of the pool filter, what a big lump that this is. We did the Marsite replacement, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. That was about 50,000, but we're good there for a while. So the heater will be the next thing. But again, we're planning and putting money away for that. And if the heater goes, we don't lose everything, right? We can operate. The water's cold, but you can still jump in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Togetherness in the pool.
Right. And a filter and a heater can be replaced more quickly than a filter, or
Theory.
okay.
I can't tell you what the heater market's gonna be in.
Right.
Is it about 2 years out?
It was, every time the guy comes in, he says, I can't believe this thing's still running. So, it's that many years out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe next fiscal year.
Okay. Nothing we have to decide now.
Nothing we have to decide now. I think we can try to whistle past the graveyard for one more year on that one.
Okay.
But yeah.
A yearly annual option.
Okay, so there's another added.
So for the animal lovers in the city, so I don't know. I know there's a bit of a cost difference, but then that allows us for some different options, for programming options in the rec
Well,
department,
and you guys said it makes a clearer pool.
Oh, yeah,
Clearer pool
absolutely.
outside
Yeah.
of the doggy stuff. So
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that was on the books.
it was a big hit.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shawnee.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I've forgotten. Have we taken a motion yet?
Not
No?
yet.
We need a motion.
Mayor, I move the bid for the replacement of the Pleasant Ridge Community Pool filter replacement and chemical monitoring and treatment be awarded to Beruzini Aquatics of Brighton, Michigan in the total amount of $135,485.
Second. Awesome. Any more discussion? May we have a vote?
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes, please. The motion carries.
So one quick question. When do they do it then? I'm sorry if I missed when you said.
Well, I'm assuming we'll call them tomorrow and say get here as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll do it over the winter.
It's like a 12-week lead time on ordering stuff.
Oh, wow.
It's like a month-long project, so.
Okay.
Cool.
That would be bad during a swim season. Thank you guys for being on top of that.
Thank you for making our lives easier.
You made our life easier with that too. So thanks.
All right. Somehow this segued. Could we talk on to move on to dog park lighting?
Yes. So we received a petition from largely dog park users requesting that the city add lights at the dog park, with the goal being to increase the time that could be used, that facility could be used. Currently, I believe it's dawn to dusk, so the request to add lights would extend that period. We posited the question to the Rec Commission. They didn't have a quorum at the meeting where we put this on their agenda, so then we sent out a survey asking just to kind of take the temperature of the Rec Commission to provide some background for you. Three of the 6 respondents said yes, they were in favor. 2 said no. 1 was undecided. And then everyone pretty much said that they should end at 9 or 10 p.m. So that's background information. The other thing I did is in your packets, we pulled the entrance and exit time scans for all dog park users from this year. And there's 2 time periods that are presented in there, January 1 through March 12, which was before daylight savings time. And so that was when twilight, civil twilight, there's 3 types of twilight, was generally between 6 and 7 in the evening. And what we found was that most visits were between 5 and 6 p.m., and then it dropped off drastically. There were very few visits after 7 p.m. during the dark period. And then from May 1 through August 17, this is the period of longest light out of the year. This is when twilight is between 9 and 9:30 p.m. So that's May 1 through August 17. So sadly, we're past that now. But during the light period where you have the most daylight, you can see that the visits were spaced out more. We had less of a peak between 5 and 6, and you had more of a gradual drop off where really users after 9 p.m. it drops off quite a bit. So I think that's a good proxy for what real demand for the dog park would be. That's when you have the most light, and that's when people use it as late as they can. Other considerations, the tennis courts are another lighted facility, and those timers, and the timer on those is old and it's not exactly precise, so we try to set it for 10 p.m. Sometimes it ends up being 12 or 10:14 p.m. or something when those click off. But the goal is that tennis court lights are supposed to go off at 10 p.m. So that just is, again, some context for what lighted park facilities, active use park facilities, what the time range is for those. So the question then is cost. What are we going to do if we are going to light the dog park? The most straightforward thing would be to do lights at the entrances. This would leave most of the dog park still unlighted. Or we could concentrate a couple of lights at one end of the dog park. And then the other end would be unlighted. Those are details we can work on. This is more a discussion of, how do you feel and what would you like us to do going forward. But to provide some context, DTE-style streetlights, we could have DTE install some lights on the power poles that run along the Kensington alley. That would be the most straightforward option. Those would typically cost between about $4,000 and $6,000 to install 2 of those lights. The question is, I don't know that we can have controls on those. I'd have to explore that with DTE to have those go off at a certain time, because generally those street lights are dusk to dawn.
Is that 4,000 to 6,000 each?
No, total.
Total?
Yeah. The other option would be for us to install our own lighting, to install the poles, and we don't get DTE involved. We just do that project. Based on the Gainsborough Park Pathway Lighting Project, we did that in 2019, so in the before times. That cost about $100,000 to install 38 lights, which included a mixture of bollards and post lights. So for the dog park scenario, we'd likely need to include the post lights, which are higher and have a larger area of illumination. Those would probably be about $4,000 to $5,000 per light to install those. Once you run the electricity, do the underground, the bases, buy the light, install the light, pay the electrician, all in. So you're probably looking at $8,000 to $10,000 to put in a couple of those lights. And then the question that is also from a long-term maintenance perspective, we know that the lights become targets for dogs. So we have to think carefully about, where we place the lights so that they're not getting watered and corroding and breaking, as dogs use them as marking posts. So we'd have to think about, where they could go so that they were kind of protected from that, because we go through bollards that are blowing drivers in the park already, and I think it may be because dogs are peeing on them, but
Interesting.
it's interesting that we have a couple, and the ones are at the entrances to the park when you first come in.
Yeah.
Those are where the bollards are going, and Tim, when he opened it up, said it was totally corroded inside.
Really?
He couldn't believe it. He actually was going to redo all the guts because he couldn't. The screws and everything were corroded, so it's likely that they're getting peed on, and that's blowing the drivers. So, yeah. So we'd have to very carefully think about where those lights go at the dog park, because that's a known issue. So. Those are kind of the what I think are the background considerations. So what we're requesting is City Commission direction to staff on our next steps. Do you want to explore this request further? If you do, how would this be paid for? Typically for user fee generated spaces like the community garden or the dog park, there's user fees that pay for the operation of that facility because it is not open to everybody. It's not open for all citizens, so that's why there's dog park fees. It pays for the mowing, Tim's time, and Shawnee and Greg's time going out and fixing the gates when they break, and then mutt mitts and buying the mutt mitts and all of that, Brylar cutting it. So that's what the current fees pay for. So should the city budget pay for improvements to a user fee supported park facility? Should dog park fees be increased to cover the cost of these improvements over time? Interested in your input and thoughts on that. And then what should the start and end time for lighting be if installed? So it could be 7 a.m. to dawn, and then dusk until 10 p.m. That's, seems like what I would lean towards as a recommendation, but it could be 9 p.m., could be 11 p.m. It's just
What time? I've not thought of this. What time do the lights turn on? Do the lights turn on in the morning at the tennis court?
Not at the tennis court. The Gainesboro Park pathway lights do turn on in the morning. And I would have to verify what time. And then I think those pathway lights go off at 11 p.m. But again, that's the main park facility,
Right.
open to all. And
Sorry, Siri.
yes,
She made a motion.
Yes.
so
Siri had a time.
that I turn it over to you.
Yes, please.
Okay. So with the if we do lights on the DTE poles, are there lights on those poles already, or are those just wire
Those are just power poles.
power poles?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's no lights back there in the alley.
Okay.
And it might not be as DTE has a thing where they won't put lights on their own power poles. So now they want to put a brand new pole in the ground for the lights.
And would they charge us per pole? They'd do it for free, right? With the, okay, so you think, okay. So, I mean, I think that would be interesting to explore, is the DTE solution. And then right now, I think you were saying something about, like, in the packet, you were saying that user fees generate around $4,500 a year.
Yes.
I should have looked at in the budget, and I'm sorry I didn't. What were, and are we spending all of that? Is any of that overflow or added extra funds? Or, I mean, it does seem like something we could sort of raise the fees, because I don't know if, have we raised the dog park fees?
Not in
a
some
while?
time.
Okay.
And
For
we
like
don't
an improvement purpose.
We don't have an exact accounting for the costs for the dog park because I don't know how many hours Tim spends there. I don't know how many hours Shawnee and Greg spend there. We'd have to estimate that.
Right.
And Brylar doesn't segregate out their lawn cutting bill for we don't know the dog park versus the Oakland Park median versus Flynn Field. It's just a lump sum. So
How many members do we have in the dog park?
no offhand.
That's cool. And so my only concern with all of this was thinking, because we have so many discussions that we want to, keep the city clean of, of dog poop and stuff like that. And is the concern at night if, we have this large park, I mean, would it, is, making sure to, if it's dark, how can you find
Right.
where your dog is doing their thing?
iPhone, you're like,
So-
that's what I do.
Yeah, so that's my concern with that. But, I mean, it seems, I personally feel like it's it makes sense, especially because winter is so short. I mean, the daytime hours are so short. So a cost-effective method, I probably don't want to do the $100,000 solution. But,
I have a couple comments. Your question about the dogs and the bathroom is a good question. Although I will say, as a dog park member, we are equally concerned about picking it up. Not only out of respect for everyone else, but also out of respect for not stepping in it the next day. So I think people, and as you mentioned with the light, the goal of any, especially a regular dog park attendee, is to pick up after their dog. And my comment on whether worth considering is just that, I mean, Pleasant Ridge, as it stands now, is incredibly dog friendly, which is awesome. Winter and owning a dog is not awesome. Between the walking your dog with the ice and the salt and all of those things. So I think taking this dog park that we already have and making it usable in the winter, and maybe not even till 10, I think even till 9, just having after work hours where you can take your dog and you can see the dog, which is certainly a safety issue for, safety thing, is definitely worth considering, because a dog park in the winter is really great when you have a dog. I mean, again, having a safe place to walk and my dog won't walk on the salt. So having that option is great. Would be great. And I would like to explore it further.
Mayor.
Yes, please.
Quickly, I think we should explore it further. I wouldn't be opposed to upping the dog fee because they are the ones mostly benefiting from this. And I still would entertain, I like when form meets function. So I think if we can keep with the consistency You said 2 of those post bollards are 4,000 to 5,000 each. So we're talking an extra $2 or $3 grand versus the DTE deal. I'd like to explore that. I think that could be nice. And then, right, if this goes well, maybe it's like, wow, we're really enjoying this. Maybe we add years down the road. But I would consider throwing a couple in there. Makes sense to me. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the dog park. I just personally, I'd be supportive of this idea, and I'd like that it came from the first of all, it's super cool that people pulled a petition together, and like participatory government's awesome, and I love it. My concerns are obviously the residents on that block of Kensington, that their backyards, but the couple that it's mixed, because some people think a dark park is creepy, and some people also think light pollution's annoying. So it can go either way. So I'd be more interested to know what the majority of that block feels like. I didn't see a lot of that block of Kensington on the signatures, but so that's who I'm thinking about. And as far as paying for it, like, yeah, whether it's the dog park fees or the foundation, I was just thinking foundation. I mean, they did Gainsborough. Like, we could, I don't know, carry that through. Like, it would make sense to have that Disney World kind of like resort looking lighting system rather than some things coming off a.
Right. If you're gonna do it right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like the sound of the bollards just because it's consistent and it's something you can test. So you can put a few in, and if it actually does solve the problem, we can plan on putting more in. So I
Don't
think
forget the dog pee, though.
we'll have to think about how to
Sorry
protect
to
the
be
bollards.
blunt, but yes, making sure.
That was an unexpected
Plastic's pretty, like, I mean, you could do the plastic shield. I'm sure. There's already like a metal shield around it. I'm wondering if whoever manufactures that light has a better version of that.
We're probably not the first to be.
Yeah, dog pee's
Present
been
the
solved
problem.
by
Yeah.
like it's an engineering
A
problem.
dog cone.
For the light?
So I think
Yeah.
our feedback is we'd love to explore it.
Okay.
Maybe a few of something like a bollard or whatever can survive.
Well, I think we're not looking at bollards. I think we're looking at post lights.
The post lights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The bollards are good for lighting a pathway.
The posts like the posts in the park?
Right. So there's bollards in the park that are
Yes.
the 4 foot or 3 foot tall
Yes.
ones, and those are legit just pathway lighting. They have a
Right.
throw of about 5 feet, and they're just there to illuminate. The posts have a wider area of illumination.
Right.
So the posts are probably what we'd need to do
Okay.
to have the right effect for
And
this area.
correct me if I'm wrong, the entrances are not lit right now?
They're not.
So that's probably where we start,
Yeah.
and it's to make sure the entrances have some lighting.
Right, and that's the other question, is do we light both entrances? That's why, I wonder, do you light one entrance to, is one entrance more appropriate for later usage? Now, granted, people are using the dog park until 10 p.m. in the summertime.
Right.
So do we care if they're using it until 10 p.m. in the wintertime? I don't know. So
Yeah.
we can look at both of those. Part of it is running infrastructure in one spot. You only have to get one electrical feed, and you can trench and do 2 lights off one electrical feed as opposed to lighting both ends. Now you're doing 2 electrical feeds. I don't know, if that presents cost or difficulties. We'd have to get an electrician involved to tell us that. So that may come in as well, but we'll have to look into that.
Do we know if one of the entrances is used more than the other?
We can find out. We have the
That's
data.
a card reader thing, right?
Yeah. I would suggest, and I know there's some dog park people here that might have comments, but if it were my guess, it would be the east entrance, the one by the community garden.
Yeah, because it's walkable, and people who come from outside of the city, there are outside of the city dog owners who do pay more. They park in those few spots at the end of Kensington sometimes. So, and it's also, it's lit partially where the last path light is, so there's at least a little bit, and it's paved or whatever, cleaned. The other side is residential sidewalk, and if the homeowner doesn't clean it, then that's also dangerous. Did you want me to come up there? I can do that.
Sure.
Yeah,
You
probably.
could just so
I
that you
got
could answer your
special to
name
put
and
makeup on everything. Hi, Susie Sherman Hall, 63 Maywood Avenue. Thank you for considering this. Yeah, I mean, I think it came up in the last couple of years. There were so many more people that got dogs during the pandemic, which was great. Last year, I think there was even some chatter on the the Facebook group about the salt that went down the first time Brylar put all the salt down. That there was so much salt that it was just an overuse of salt. So then that becomes dangerous too. So it was really from a safety standpoint that we thought about this. More people are going back to work, whereas they were working remotely. They could go during the day. There are still people that that are somewhat hybrid. They'll come at lunch, that kind of thing. But we were all just talking about, gee, it's really difficult in the winter. So, I mean, I fell last year walking, just actually on Devonshire. So it really would be, I think, a helpful thing. And I think, I can't speak for all the dog owners, but I think it's $30 that we've been paying for a long time. So I don't think anybody would really have an issue with that because we know it's paying for a lot of stuff to be done. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And nobody wants to disrupt Kensington. There's no,
Right.
right, nothing to do. And there are Kensington dog park owners, so.
Please.
Thank you. Please, that's all right. Eric Weston, 39 Sylvan. I did not wear makeup and dress up. I didn't know it was formal. So I bought my house in 2018. Got a dog, and then found out the dog park was there, and sort of changed my life. And love it. Love this city, love the dog park, love what you guys do to keep that there. I think that's, the best part of living here. I think the one thing that hasn't got brought up is it's a safety issue, right? There are a lot of single women with dogs that go to the dog park. And at night in the wintertime, it's pitch black, right? You can't see anything. For a safety standpoint, I think you need to have lights. Yes, you can do the entrances, but I think there needs to be lights in the park. Wow, I'm so nervous. I can get up in front of an audience and say jokes and stuff, but this is so serious. But yeah, I think it's, the biggest concern, yes, I think, lit, especially with the ice, and thank you for putting the gravel down because it makes it a lot easier in the wintertime. But for me, the biggest thing, it's a safety concern. I'm not, I'm sort of speaking for everybody. But yeah, I think that's all I got. But yeah, the lights going from where they stop the bollards all the way to the park would be nice, so that we have a lit pathway walking to the dog park.
And that's city too. I mean, that's used by lots of people, not just dog owners. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
May I ask about the coverage of the light? Because that's a good point I was thinking about is, if it's going to be limited or complete, but is there any risk to dogs? If, the dog comes out of a dark part of the park, coming to dogs in the light, I'm just thinking about dog behavior. Would it be better to have the full thing lit? Do we have examples of other cities who do this and precedent, I guess?
I mean, I've certainly been to other dog parks that have sections lit. Personally, anyone using the dog park now after dark, the dogs are running in the dark anyway, so I don't think it changes. I don't think it changes any of the.
It's not gonna be a surprise or
yeah,
something.
I don't think it changes any of the existing issues of going to the dog park in the dark.
Some people have lights for their dogs, like dog collars. You see a bunch of us with headlamps, or we'll go in the small area just to contain.
And dogs have those noses; they smell each other anyway.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My dog's too old now.
Have we got enough?
Can I get the next one?
I think so. Okay. I think we're good.
I mean, did you want to consider lighting the pathway from the parking lot into the dog park? Because that's turning this into a bigger project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just start small
Yeah.
and see what.
I think if the entrances were lit, or at least one, maybe the most popular one, it's probably the one at the park.
Connects to the path.
Yeah, the east
And
side.
then a place near the entrance that's lit, so, and then we could test it and see if it makes sense for everybody.
I think there might be a PT street light out to look and see where the one at the end of Kensington is, because that's going to give you an aerial wash there as well.
Right.
Or is there any solar option too? That'd be something to consider. I don't know if that would be powered. That could be fun. The girls have a little solar powered Christmas lights that go till 4 a.m. It working out great.
Yeah.
It's Christmas in our house.
It'll work when the
all year
power's
long.
out too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I think we got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for considering.
Yeah. City managers report. Got anything left?
Yeah, I have a couple things. Hartwell is going. They're our concrete contractor. Finally, they're going to be in town soon. We're told, doing concrete repairs. So all of the street work, all the sewer work that's been done, those street repairs will be made. They're going to be redoing our DPW yard as well. So there will be some activity down at the end of Amherst. It was an old asphalt lot, and it just has disappeared. Sort of. It's a gravel lot now. So it's time. We've been avoiding that for a long time.
What are you putting in?
Concrete.
Okay.
Yeah. And also an update on the Kensington water main. We know that project has been sort of waiting. We got the federal earmark for that, but being the federal government now, we have to apply for a grant that we are going to get, but we still have to go through the process of applying for a grant. And the EPA has not yet released the grant to apply for, so we're still waiting. We're told that was supposed to happen in September, and we're halfway through September, and I haven't seen anything about the grant applicant process. So,
Was that the bats or something else?
Pardon?
Was that the bats? Wasn't the Indiana bats or something?
No, that was
Never mind.
the.
Okay.
It was a street.
Okay.
Yeah,
Woodward
that was a
Streetscape.
streetscape.
Right.
Yes.
No, this is just bureaucracy.
Okay.
So we're waiting still.
Okay.
Cool.
So
We're further along in our waiting.
Yeah, the design is mostly done, just waiting for the ability to go ahead. And we're waiting to see what the grant requirements are to finalize the design to make sure that there's no requirements in the grant for criteria that we have to fulfill with design or bidding or any of the other things. So we still want to construct it in the spring.
Oh, can they work through the winter, or it would wait till spring?
And by the time we got the approved and we apply for the grant, get the grant documents and get that signed and back and forth and yada yada, we'll be building in the spring.
Cool.
If we can.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's still coming.
Great.
This is the downside of getting $650,000 from the federal government.
Cool.
That's all I have. Any
And
questions?
Do you have a date for the Woodward Heights Zoom meeting for September?
I think you sent it out.
Yeah, there was an email to everyone who signed up, and it's on the website, and that is
27th.
Tuesday the 27th. There's also a postcard that's going to every house in the city with registration information for that meeting. So everyone will get that in the mail also. And I believe that was dropped at the post office today. So that should start hitting hopefully that starts hitting mailboxes this week or early next week.
And that's a Zoom meeting
Correct.
that everyone can attend.
Yes.
Did they give you a preview?
No, I haven't seen a preview yet.
Okay.
No.
Great.
I kind of don't want a preview.
Right. Surprise.
Right.
Great.
Excellent. Any other business from anyone?
Just one quick thing. I'm inspired by this dog park project, and it brings to light just a couple of conversations I've had with neighbors just throughout the years and such. But like ideas such as maybe reintroducing like early mornings at the pool. Would that be a candidate for a petition, or like a drinking fountain by the bus stop at Millington? Because in the summer it gets really hot and there's people waiting there dehydrating. Like one of the dog fountain with the person fountain on it would be something. So, like, if we wanted to do something like this, are those projects that are a good candidate for a petition? And if so, like, what are the criteria?
I mean, there's really no criteria. The dog park group created their own petition and got people to sign it and gave it to us. And she said, okay, well, this demonstrates there's interest, so we'll follow up now.
Okay.
So I think, we have a petition process in the traffic calming manual. That one's a little more formalized because
limited to the block.
And there's kind of a process. We want to make sure that at least 50% of the people on the block sign that petition before we start the process of looking at changes to the street. That's a formalized process. Other things like this, it's just okay. There's interest. We'll follow up on it. Early morning swim at the pool. That's a question for these guys because there's a lot of programming, and I know that there's like swim team practices that happen in the mornings.
I'm talking about the weekends. Sorry.
Okay. So I don't know if it's a staffing question, or yeah.
That's the biggest.
I mean, we have to have 4 guards to open the pool, right?
For the early bird swim at least one.
Okay.
And sometimes we can't.
Yeah.
It's hard with
the demographic of the kids that we hire at 15 to get them to do anything.
Really?
Especially on a Saturday or Sunday, so not always is that.
Right.
always-
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on
And they're on their own swim teams in the summertime, you know, a lot
Right.
of them swim for us or Huntington Woods, the communities they live in, so they also have swim meets, you know, their mini meets and stuff, so we would hate to, overpromise and underdeliver to the community and something like that.
And maybe we could pilot it, because like I remember as a guard, those were great hours because it was quiet and sleepy, and we'd have bagels and donuts, and like 9:30 or 10:30 on a Saturday is like just as nice as noon. And I just remember last year we were like what we called like a unicorn, where we had an abundance of staff. Like, what if the staff was interested in, like, could we maybe ask the staff if they'd be interested in it potentially? Like, obviously, like respecting the guards' times and schedules, but like if the guards would be down with it, like it might be easy hours.
I can investigate it next year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
certainly.
Something we can do now, obviously, but.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
related to that? Can I?
Please.
I think we're in other business.
Other
Yeah,
business,
no, I'm
go
done
for
with
it.
my question, but thank you.
I would-
And we
I
can
would-
take
but
it
I would get
offline.
up for
I
it,
got
though.
Ideas
Oh, I have to
to.
get up for it?
Yeah, it just makes it easier.
Okay, well, it's actually, so it's directed at them too, because I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it to you guys, but I was curious about the shoulder seasons, if there'd ever been consideration of doing like a soft open in like May and staying open till September on the weekends only? No? I did ask a straw poll of a couple of the guards. I did ask a couple of the guards, and because the ones that are not in college, you know, because it's money for them. And a couple of them said, sure, they would do it. I mean, you know, who knows what they would tell you.
Tell them that during the regular.
Right? I know, right? Seriously. So I just want, because even a soft open then in May, like doing a weekend versus the big Memorial Day weekend where some of them are very new and there's
I
the
think-
learning curve and all that. So that was my
I
question.
think the soft open is a full open for the preparation of the pool and the building.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah, you're either open or
But
you're
the
not.
ramped
So
off
they-
closed
they're-
those
yeah.
already because it's already open. The chemicals are going.
right.
Like,
Yeah.
We can't even stay open like through the regular day, like at the end of August, because so many kids are going back to school. I mean, we have so, you know, we
Yeah.
publicize it every day, like on Facebook and email out the schedule and stuff, and
changed.
people still come like, hey, it's 1, ready for the pool. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, all the kids. So anybody that goes to private school, they've gone back early to mid-August, you know, and schools are going back before Labor Day now.
And
So that
sports.
there are days that
Yeah.
we did have to close, or
You couldn't open?
Greg was the head guard, Kaya was the lifeguard, I was the head guard, Greg was in the black. I mean, so we make it work, so,
Yeah.
you know, that's not going to be something that we like are putting on Facebook. It's like, oh, Shawnee's sitting at the head guard desk because she really is the head guard right now. It's just like, oh, there's Shawnee, you know.
Right.
But those are just a lot of things that, to the naked eye, you're not gonna notice.
Right.
But we don't have enough staff to.
No, you could
Really
tell
be
that this year.
piecemealing.
It was hard, yeah.
Right.
But I
And
think
that's
you're
not always,
thinking
you know, mid-July is not nearly as hard, but toward
Right.
the end of
Sports.
August. And then,
Right.
you know, it's girls' swim season, which most of the female staff that we have, and then it's football season too, so it gets to be really difficult. But we did have staff for the dog swim, because everybody was very excited for that, but we only needed 2, so everybody loves to see that. Yes, but the dogs don't talk back,
Doggy
so
lifeguards?
it's pretty easy to get
Right.
2 people for that, so, no, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, so that, I mean, that is not stuff that falls on deaf ears, nobody loves the pool more than me, Greg not as nearly as much, but, it just really becomes too difficult with the staff. So with that being said, a lot of people say like, why don't you hire adults? Why don't you hire older people to do that?
Why don't they
We don't
apply?
age discriminate.
Right.
Why don't, you know, if more people are interested in keeping the pool open longer or more earlier hours, please, you know, take your lifeguarding, get your certification.
I had it 30 years ago.
Yeah, go take it now, you know, we love to have more people always apply, you know, I mean, we do have, seasoned lifeguards, everybody knows Colleen, she's great, she's seasoned, works for a long time. She has years under her belt of working at multiple pools, different places, and we highly encourage everybody that's interested, and that would make our lives easier also. to have people that aren't going to be on swim teams or football teams in the fall to be able to make those dreams become reality. Because, you know, I always like to say, you know, the good kids are always doing good things. You know, so when they say, hey, I need to go to swim team practice, who, you know, or driver's ed, or I'm taking a calculus class.
Yeah.
Not today.
Work doesn't-
Not today.
Not
We're
today.
watching
And-
the pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I
we'll-
want to say that, but you know.
And we'll look at all of that
okay,
next.
we'll make it, you know, Greg, we.
Yeah, we'll look
we
at it
make
all next
work,
spring.
so. But if anybody, you know, there's been a couple people, but if there are, you know, again, they have to be certified and come to training and be part of the staff. It's not just like, hey, be certified and then show up in August and not know our protocols and our safety, you know, it's, you're part of the staff. If anybody's interested in that, we'd be more than happy.
We can clip this and replay this in May when people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or in August when people are,
I have one other business.
All right.
Quick
All right.
other business, which is I've watched 2 big trees fall in the last couple weeks, and it's been awful to see, and it's been fairly devastating to the houses. So make sure to check your trees, but also we are getting into oak tree season, which means it's coming in November. Once we get the first frost, you can start trimming the oak trees. So this is a good time to start looking at your trees and preparing, especially for the oak trees.
And I would say booking the person that's doing that, because
Now.
ultimately, to get somebody for November, you should be thinking about it probably now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is
That's
the
how
time.
it's going.
And whether you think it's healthy or not, I mean, watching these trees go is awful to see, but it's also devastating for the houses. So just being mindful of your trees. But yes, we're getting into the season for oak trees. So
Thank you.
I know, it's terrible.
Any other business? I think we're ready to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. That's a wrap.
Thank you.